Talk Shoes. Recorded live.
Hello, this is Kat Miller. It is Thursday, June 2nd, 2011, and I'm here talking with Dane. Dane.
Hello, hello.
Hi. How are you?
Oh, doing fine. You know, we've been having a good yammer here. And I'm sitting in my dry basement now, so that's always good.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. We don't like water in our basement.
The whole cement pond thing, that was for the Beverly Hillbillies. Didn't work for me.
Very well. At least you've got it dry and all. Yeah, as you can hear, Dane had a little pond spring up in his basement.
At least I didn't get lily pads and frogs.
Yes. Oh, speaking of nature, back in March, I think it was, I had, and I don't know what type of bird it is, I had a little bird that sat itself into a big hole we have in the cactus out front. Mm-hmm. And it was there for about 3 weeks sitting on a nest, and then it disappeared, and there were feathers all over the place, and I thought, oh, it got. And then about 2 weeks later, we had another bird, same type of bird. It's kind of a light tannish beige bird with almost looking like dark brown diamond on the wing. Anyway, it set up nest there, and I was kind of concerned about it. And so since I saw it was there, and I didn't want to have happen to it what happened to the last one, and this hole is like almost probably between a third and half the way around the cactus, and it's way up high at about 8 to 10 feet up. And I decided that I was going to make sure that this bird that set up nest there was going to bring her babies to a point where they would survive. And every day, as I've left the house and as I've come home, I have sent divine light guard up to that bird. She watches me come and go, and she always turns her head and watches. And today, when we were leaving this morning to go to my daughter's house, she was not alone. She had actually, it must have been the father was in there with her, because there were 2 good-sized birds in there. And I thought, she's built kind of a shield up, because the nest was more hidden than it had been. And then that shield moved, and I realized that her babies were here. And so I've been using this Divine Light Guard, and this mother bird is getting to be a mother bird now, unlike the unfortunate one from earlier. This space in this cactus is so wide open, it's not easily defendable. You have the back part of the cactus is closed off, so if something comes in from the front, which is where the attack, of course, would come from, there's no maneuverability. There's nothing that can be done. And so protection needs to be set up where the bird just doesn't get attacked. And so that's the way I did that. Now, isn't that cool? I like that. That we have that. Anyway. And speaking of nature, today I defined a new switch word, which I also expanded on under the animals, because animal wisdom is where I actually got it from. And this is owl. And it was.
I'm sorry. How did that owl do that? What did the owl do?
Oh, you just do that to.
Sure, it's not a screech owl.
No, it was a hoot owl, man. It was a hoot owl.
And how did that hoot go again?
It went.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep. So this morning, as I was doing personal and astrological switch phrases for people, owl came up, and it wasn't on my list of switch words, and I realized I needed to look into it and define it, and so I also went into the animal wisdom,
Mhm.
and looked at that, saw that it also needed to be expanded upon. And so I've done that, and I wanted to read that, especially since you, being such an earth person
Mhm.
and so connected to nature, would like to know more about or see more of what I've seen about it and such. So
Mhm.
let me
Okay.
read first about the owl wisdom.
Mhm.
Owl. Self, secrecy, silent wisdom and swift movement, seeing behind masks, keen sight and hearing, messenger of secrets and omens,
Mhm.
shape-shifting, link between the dark, unseen world and the world of light,
Mhm.
comfort with shadow, moon magic, and freedom.
Mhm.
And then I've gone on to give a little bit of connection there. Use owl wisdom to connect to your own clairvoyance and clairaudience. That's the seeing the unseen and hearing the unsaid. Use owl wisdom to view new perspectives on others not seen before.
Mhm.
And use owl wisdom to take swift advantage of opportunities that come before you.
Like that.
And so I just, as I was reading up on the owl, which is where I come into the owl wisdom and pull out what's needed, it was just really fascinating to see some of the stuff that it does. An owl in near pitch dark conditions can actually see very subtle movements, very little movement. The yellow eyes reflect any light that is coming, that is around the owl into its vision, so that it can see that. And so even moving in dark shadows, it's able to see it, any movement. And
It's
so
interesting
really
that with what you said there, bringing up owl and everything, that especially with the one about take swift advantage of opportunity, and especially because they can see at night like they can. And I'm sitting here realizing that, well, we were discussing earlier, switch words for people always wanting to win the lottery, things like that. And how you had, written it the way you had, and how, we were discussing how it seemed different from the way you normally write. And lately, I had sat there and decided that as much as I enjoy what I'm doing, there are other things I also want to do. So I put myself out there for stuff I used to do for the government a long time ago. And I said, wow, I'm actually liking this idea. So here it came down that as I made these changes with the whole switch words phrases, I said, well, let's do I want to play the whole money game. But I found out for me, I actually enjoyed find, count. Because find it, bring it to you, and then count, which is integral to money. All money is counted. I like that. It's neutral and something I'm comfortable with, as opposed to other things like trying to force it, or jackpot bothers me. It doesn't seem to jibe with who I am. So then I found out that, well, hey, I opened up to find, count, together. Well, there's the big universal switch word there, together. I said, I'm liking this a lot. That night I went to sleep, and I just kept waking up halfway wanting to say something with an L first. And no, it's supposed to be find, count, together. Well, then I woke up with, I said, okay, look, I missed out on half a night's sleep here. What the heck is the L? And, of course, the subconscious came through and said, love. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Love, find, count, together. And growing up, I was raised as a poor healer. I was raised completely in that tradition. You can get out there, you can put your hands on people, you can help them, you can help ease their soul, their pains, whatever. You've got to be poor to do it. And so for me, money was never a love thing. It was like, something dirty you got to deal with, that kind of thing. And so for my subconscious to say, oh, well, we can change your entire process about this because it's love. Find, count, together. I'm like, wow, that's neat. And now here you are tonight, and we had to postpone this talk. It was supposed to have been 2 nights ago, but things kept happening on my end that I wasn't able to do it. And here you are, you've now defined owl. Well, because I have revamped things in the last 4 days and gone after things that I haven't even bothered with for a long time but have decided I want to go back and do, suddenly opportunities are pouring out of the woodwork for me, especially since I started with the love, find, count together. Now, has anybody loaded my bank account with cash in the last 48 hours? No. But there are opportunities popping up for me that are so incredibly rare that the money end of it is just incredibly ridiculous. Over the next course of the year, I can easily be about 10 times of where I am now, just doing something I want to do, not being some web guru or anything like that. I mean, just going out and having fun doing something I used to do years ago for the government. And I'm like, wow. And also, one thing that you know about me, but other people don't, I can see at night better than my dog. Now, my eyes aren't gold, though, folks, or yellow. But, so here you are, you've totally defined this, and as part of that, you said, and it made connection to my subconscious when it was about the opportunities, the moonlight, the hidden knowledge, and take advantage swiftly of opportunities that are presenting themselves. And that's exactly where I am right now.
Isn't that awesome?
So, folks, it works in ways you don't expect. And that's the cool thing about how switch words and the universe and your subconscious work. All you got to do, though, is be aware. Like myself, I said, well, that was silly to lose half a night's sleep. Okay, what wants to come out? And instantly it was love. So that's where, and look at how you've defined owl. You did that, it helped a lot of people, but here it has tied directly into something I was doing that actually caused us to postpone our normal webcast 2 nights ago.
Isn't that fascinating?
So, curiouser and curiouser.
Yeah, what I find fascinating is, okay, I went through this process this morning, and so doing the personal switch phrases for everyone I have on subscription for that right now, it wound up taking probably 45 minutes to an hour longer than I anticipated because I went through the discovery process to find the information on OWL and focus in and get that definition. Occasionally, switch words, I get the information and it only takes a few minutes, but usually it takes a lot of digging before I finally find what information it is that I needed to be able to do the definition, and that's kind of the way it was today. What's really interesting is after I finished doing the switch phrases, the personal switch phrases for this person, and I made a note to her saying, wow, when I was defining, when I was doing your switch phrases, I found owl as a broad switch word, and I had to define it to do your switch phrases. It was totally cool to have that. And then I went on to the next person, and they had owl in one of their switch phrases. And now I come here, and we're exploring owl here to your benefit. And so it's just totally amazing that 3 very specific applications for that came up today. And I suspect that perhaps that is part of why things didn't work out the other day for us to do the talkcast, is because I needed to be spurred to look into, find, and define owl. And so, totally awesome. What fun, huh?
Yeah, I love it. And, I mean, this is just proof to me that I am on the right track in doing this, because I had doubts going back into something I haven't, that I had walked away from 20 years ago. And I'm realizing now that I am completely headed in the right direction. And people say, but you're the shaman, you're supposed to know everything. Well, guess what, folks? None of us know everything. But the way we really make ourselves superhuman is by being aware of everything around us and absorbing it and using it in a way that means something to our conscious.
Indeed.
And that's what it comes down to. We all can be superhuman. We're born that way. It's just a case of what have you turned off as you grew up. What have you turned on even better as you grew up?
Exactly. I want to step back a minute to your switch phrase for money that has been showing you a lot of promise and has been doing a lot for you. Love. That, as a switch word, has two meanings. The first one is to generate, radiate, and experience love. And the second one is acceptance.
There you go.
And so what I see with love is that it's asking you to accept. Now, find is to build your fortune. Count is to attract money. And together is to become a master of anything. And so what I see with this switch phrase that you coined is love, find, count together. Appreciate the fortune as you build it by attracting money masterfully.
Oh, I love the way you turn a phrase there, dear. Yes. You're just calling me the international. Would you like a cigarette? You know? Yeah. And here's the fun thing about that. I didn't put any thought into it. It's just what my inside told my outside to start doing.
And you listen.
And I listened and started doing it. And now Carrie also, for those of you that don't know, that's my wife. She's also like, I like that. It makes sense, as she put it, in her bones. And I said, well, there you go. So now she's doing it, and she's always had a fascination with mudras also, which she has added to it. And
mudra.
Go ahead.
How about you talk a little bit about the mudra? Because I believe you started to talk about that before we started recording. In fact, I think it was about that time that I realized, we haven't started recording yet. And
actually,
tell us about, because I kind of looked up when you talked about the mudra, money mudra. I looked up money mudra, and I saw a few different mudras for money, and I wanted to have you maybe clarify exactly what it is that you're doing on that, and if you will, let people here know, because there probably are a number of people that may listen that have no idea what you're talking about when you say mudra.
And folks, I'll be honest with you, for me, this is something I've just started learning myself. I've had a little bit of fascination with it when I lived in Thailand and Japan, but truthfully, I'm really learning myself. But it comes down to mudras. They're symbolic or ritual gestures. Hinduism, Buddhism use them massively. Thai dancing, Indonesian dancing uses them. And they're considered, the hand symbols are like a physical key to manifesting a certain thought, feeling, emotion. And when you watch different types of Asian dancing, the hands movements and the feet movements are actually telling the story. So you actually have to be aware of the culture and what they all mean. They're telling a story on the physical, mental, and spiritual level. Now, there are also yoga mudras used with pranayama, the breathing exercises, to go along with that. Also, there are, in Japan, there were depending on who you talked with, let's say the ninjas. That's the ones you see it associated with mostly, kujikiri. And that had to do with using your hands in certain sequences to generate massive internal and external power. So, mudra. It basically is a symbolic ritual gesture that creates on the physical plane what you are doing. It's just another way of bringing it about. Instead of saying it, you're actually physically doing it, and that is the symbol that represents it. And there are tons of them, and I'll probably spend the rest of my life studying it because I find them totally fascinating. And I realized that I came across the Pan Mudra, and it's called the money mudra in a lot of cultures. And I'll find a picture for it and I'll put it up on the blog. That would be the simplest way to explain it. But basically, you have your two, first and second fingers pointing straight. Your thumb is brought forward And then your third and fourth fingers are bent forward, and they're touching the tips of them to your thumb. And that's called the Pan Mudra. And I found out I started doing that with the love, find, count together. And things changed drastically. From the energy perspective, I could feel all kinds of chi movement going up and down the spine and going through the hips, into the ground, back out the top of the head. Fascinating. That changed everything just by using the mudra. But the one thing that I discovered that was really surprising to me is I couldn't hold the mudra for more than just a few seconds because my hands were saying, no, this is not happening. You don't get to do this. Now this, it took me a little bit to realize, was the manifestation of me growing up being raised as a poor healer. No, you can't have money for that. You can't make money doing that. That's not what you're here for. And now, also, some of it, of course, was I've broken my hands a lot of times over the years with martial arts and other things, and motocross and all that. But it actually took me 4 days before I could do it to where my hands are quite comfortable doing it, yet they still can't hold it for more than just a couple of minutes. But at least it's not like taking crab claws and making them shuffle cards right now. So even at a very base level, money affected my entire life, or not supposed to have money because I'm a healer. I'm not supposed to be rich. And that ties in with what I had originally talked with you about, that money, you know, how you say in yours when I was making a discussion with you about that money is so ingrained into us with fear, as in if we don't have enough, we starve, we can't do what we want. It's always a chase game. And when you had talked about the lottery and money, you had taken a very different tactic, I had noticed. And that's when I said, wow, let's talk about this. So it's all come together.
They're awesome.
Yeah. And, you know, that's what I tell people. It doesn't matter how many things you've mastered. There's still a whole universe out there. Master something else. If you don't master it, at least enjoy it. You know, have fun with it. Play. Be a jack of all trades, you know. And because, sure, I'm a master of half a dozen things. Let's see, half a dozen things in a universe. Looks like I got a lot more fun left out there. You know? And that's what I tell everybody. There's so much fun out there. There's so many things you can learn about yourself that you never, ever knew. And you can change them. It's up to you entirely. But the only way you're ever going to be able to do that is if you actually listen to what's going on within you so that you can bring it without.
Exactly.
Well, that was good. I should probably trademark that one.
Well, it's really kind of interesting. The last week or two, I've read quite a bit about Socrates because Kevin had brought Socrates as a possible switch word. Mm-hmm. And, of course, when I tested, it came up, yes, I should define this. And so I sat it to the side and put up that I was going to define it, and then started reading to get what exactly it is about Socrates that makes it switch word. And one of the really fun things that I read was he said that his oracle told him that he was the wisest man in Athens. Mm-hmm. And he chuckled and he disagreed, and really strongly disagreed with that, because he thought of himself as being really kind of dumb, not the least bit wise. And so what he did is he went and he found the three men in Athens that were touted as being the wisest men in Athens. Mm-hmm. And he questioned them to seek their wisdom. And they apparently called themselves wise, and everyone else called them wise because they called themselves wise. But in his questioning, he found that they really didn't have answers to anything. Mm-hmm. And he decided that they really weren't wise after all,
Mhm.
And he came up with a bit of a conundrum where he realized that I am the wisest man in Athens because I know nothing, and I know that I know nothing.
That's a good start.
And I find that I tend to agree with him on that the wisest people are the people who realize that they really don't know much of anything.
Mhm.
The more you know, the less you know.
Mhm.
Or
yeah.
the more you know, the more you know you don't know.
Or what is it I was told years ago? The more aware I become, the less I see.
Mhm.
And you know, and they meant it as there's so much that they're aware of, but there's so much they realize that they'll never see.
Yes.
You know, even if you were living for 10,000 years, there's just so much out there, and it's wonderful. You know, if you really want to have a good time and learn something, teach somebody how to read. Teach an adult how to read.
Well,
and of course, teach children to read. But I'm saying if you really want to see something interesting, and in pretty much most communities across America now, there are literacy programs where you would sign up for a year and you would teach an adult to read, or more than one. And it's fascinating how here's an adult that's gotten through life illiterate to some kind of degree, as in either they outright could not read the written language, they'd never been taught, or they just had problems with it, or they could read some things, or they were what was called icon literate. It's amazing what you learn from somebody that had been cut off from the flow of words that way, how they've learned to see the world and deal with it, and you will gain so much knowledge, and you get it for free. All you're doing is trading an hour or two of your time helping them become more. But you end up getting so much more back from them. It's just truly amazing what you find out when those of us that have grown up reading our entire lives think nothing of it. Yet for somebody that couldn't read and they learn how, you're floored by the way they did get through life, and then you turn around and find out, oh, there's so much more I can learn from them.
Yeah, I recall a time, it was probably I was in my early to mid-20s. I was living in a condominium, and one of the gentlemen, he was probably 5 or 10 years older than me, was coming around. We had a block party that we were going to be doing, and he was coming around to gather donations for the stuff that we were going to have at the block party. And I was really quite astounded because he had this paper that he had everybody's names on, and he was writing down who had paid and who had not. And I looked at the paper, and I asked him what that meant. He said paid. And what he had spelled is P-A-D, paid. And I looked at that. I had looked at that, and of course I saw pad. I couldn't figure out what he was talking about. And I think that was my first exposure to, or at least known exposure to, an adult who didn't have a very elementary spelling capacity. Because I think by the 3rd or 4th grade, one knows P-A-I-D. And here I was dealing with somebody maybe late 20s, early 30s, who had paid as PAD, and you know, I just hadn't had that experience, and so I was astounded with that. But yes, I totally agree. When you teach, you learn so much. In fact, my philosophy on that is if you really want to learn something, if you really want to know how to do something in depth, first you watch somebody do it, then you have them watch you do it, then you teach somebody else to do it.
That's it.
Once you teach it, then you know it. Until you teach it, you really do not have that in-depth grasp of whatever it is.
Yeah.
Once you teach it, you really have a much more in-depth feel for it, knowledge of it, understanding of it, and you do learn that, wow, there are things out there that have prevented people from learning things that seem to be very elementary to you, that are very simple for you. And there are people out there that just cannot grasp concepts that you have, but you know what? They got things that you cannot grasp too. Don't put yourself up on a stand and say I'm better than them, because there are things that you cannot even comprehend that they know.
Yeah. Language is such a cool thing and it's amazing that how just a little one-letter change in language can change everything and lead to either a disaster or a funny, What was it with Kennedy when he went to Berlin? Ich bin ein Berliner. He basically said he was a donut because the person that taught him the German phrase hadn't been there in 20 years and the language had changed. And so instead of being a Berliner, he was a donut. And years ago, I was playing poker with a bunch of friends. We were in the Army, and one of the guys there, Jose, and it's funny for me because I grew up in the Gulf Coast in Texas and Louisiana, so I had a lot of Mexican and Texican friends, growing up. I knew how to spell in Spanish and everything like that, and I'm just grabbing the pad so we can kind of keep track of some of the stuff going on. And so I write down all our names as we're getting ready to do some poker and some other card games that doing a little money with. Not even thinking about it, I write Jose out as Hose. And didn't think about it at all. Didn't even notice I had done it. And poor Jose, he sees it later. He goes, "What the heck? I'm hose now?" We laughed about this for weeks, And it's like, Dane, you of all people, you're a spelling bee champ. You're this, you're that, and you wrote my name as hose. So I said, look, at least I put the tilde at the end. It's Jose, And so and it's just so amazing what language can be. It doesn't have to be letters. It can be images. It can be mudras. And it's so fascinating how many languages each of us have as a human.
Well, speaking of how dynamic a language is, just looking over my lifetime, when I was growing up, gay meant happy, joyful. It's very hard to associate those meanings rather than homosexual to gay now. When I was growing up, a thong was something you wore on your foot.
Right.
And those are flip-flops now. And if you talk about a thong, you're now talking about a pair of underwear that got its name because it looked like the flip-flops on your feet.
Yep.
And that's a matter of a very, very short time.
Yeah.
Just a decade or two. And then I remember one time, I guess it wasn't very long ago because my granddaughter's almost 5 right now. I said something about that I was playing footsie with her under the table, and I got a horrified look from my daughter. Apparently, footsie is sexual now.
Great, just great.
And so, but this is going on everywhere in the in the English language, in the Spanish language, in every language. You have, just because we're human, we are changing the meanings of words as we go along. In fact, at the time that the King James Version of the Bible was written, jealous meant protective. People reading the Bible and hearing or seeing that ours is a jealous God have a hard time interpreting that as protective because jealous has not meant protective for quite some time.
Right.
And if you look at, not only have these Bibles gone through translations, but the words themselves have changed meanings. So, and just the examples that I've been giving, most of them have been in the last 20 or 30 years. That's less than a generation that the words have changed that much. Now, we're talking with the Bible, it being around 2,000 years old. How many changes have those words gone through, even without having to try and translate?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And so, but things do. They really change substantially over even a single generation. And,
well, you know, me growing up in the Deep South with all the racial crap that happened in the 60s and the 70s, and me, I was always raised that skin doesn't matter. What's inside's all that counts. So more than once, I ended up siding with the kid that was getting pounded by the guys that thought because you're black or Mexican or Chinese, you should get pounded. And I just didn't grow up with that kind of attitude. But now, a lot of the words that you and I grew up with, they were cuss words or else they were horrendous, derogatory words. Today's kids throw them back and forth like they're nothing. They don't think a thing of it. And truthfully, it's a friend of mine the other day, he and I were talking about it, and he and I are the same generation, and he's African American, and we were talking about this, how today's kids, they'll throw the N-word around, and it doesn't matter what color they are, black and white or anything like that. It doesn't have an issue for them. And he and I are like, we're glad to see it happen because it's taking away the pain and the garbage. But at the same time, he and I are of the generation that it's impossible for us to ever do that. You know what I mean? There's no way I could whip that out like that and say it. And he's like, yeah, he said, you're right, because he said it's not, we don't come from a time and place where it is something you can just throw out there like, yo, fool. He said it's not like that for us because we grew up with the pain. But we were very, very glad to see that today's kids can do it. You know what I mean? That's what so many people fought for, even though to us it's like, man, that's rude. Kid, you have no manners. You shouldn't be throwing that out there like that. And then also slang words for cuss words. You know, like I was in the library the other day, and some young girls, 14, 15, going back and forth with bitches. Oh, I grew up. You don't do that. That's wrong. And finally, there was a lady at another table that she was about 35, and she turned around and got him for it. She's like, look, you keep throwing this word around like there's nothing to it. She said, what? Don't you even understand how derogatory this word is? And they truly did not understand. To them, it didn't have the same meaning.
No, very, very.
You know, not at all. And so we're talking between those girls and that woman, maybe 15 years of difference, maybe. And their worlds were completely different.
Well, there was a stark change for me. When I was in high school, I took Spanish, and in my Spanish class, we were told that the black people loved the sound of the word black spoken in Spanish, which was negro, Negro. They adopted that to describe themselves. And through junior high, high school, a black person to me was a Negro because that was what I was taught. And I thought that they liked the term. But also at the same time, the other slang that people would use, as I guess I could say it here, would call a black person a nigger as a derogatory term. And because Negro and nigger were so close in sound, and of course the slang came out of that, there began to be a turnoff to any of them wanting to be called that. And I recall when I was, I guess, probably 19, and I was working for an insurance company. There was a black gal that worked with me, and when I said the word Negro, I think it was everything she could do to keep from hitting me, and I didn't know. It had changed that starkly and that completely over the course of just a very few years. I have always used the term black because I do not, in any way, shape, or form, want to offend anybody over anything. But it was, I don't know if it was just where she came from, the schools that I went to, it was just not seen that it was anything different. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know that there
and
was
it's very regional
in a short period of time.
Yeah, it can be very regional also.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I know that there was, in junior high school, there was one black boy in our school. And Salt Lake has had very, very few, or I guess I should say very, very little racial differences. It's a very high percent white, very few of other races. And so it's possible that where I was in a pocket where it wasn't seen that this was offensive to them yet. And over the course of this very few years between my high school classes and the experience I had at work, things did a major shift.
Yeah.
And
I
mean, I didn't think it was something that would be offensive because I was taught that they loved the sound of the Spanish word for black.
And see, it's just amazing how things change, and that's where people are having trouble keeping up. Things are changing faster now. Well, my father-in-law, he's a World War II vet. He's 84 years old. And he said he does not understand today's world at all. He doesn't get it. And apparently, as most 80-year-olds, he loves the Weather Channel, which I cannot fathom yet. Ask me in 30 more years and I'll tell you how that works. But things are changing so fast, people don't know how to keep up. So what do you think of, what have you got for a switch phrase for this change, this fastness, to make it more suitable, more comfortable, to integrate it better? I'm going to throw that one at you since you are the switch word goddess.
Well, adjust is the first word that pops into my mind, because adjust is to find balance, to adjust to uncomfortable conditions. And so adjust seems to be one of the best things for that. Looking to see if there are other. Crystal is to get a better understanding of the situation, to clarify the situation. So crystal may be useful too.
Well, see, now you got homework. Hey, Ted, just so you know, I got homework on cat this time. Yeah. Ted's one of our guests here on the call tonight.
Yeah.
So, and also, as you folks can see, look at what we started with and look where we ended up. And it comes down to things change. So the question is, how much do you change with them? Do you change at all? Or what would you do to make the change even better? And I know that's where I see life. That's where I come from my life every day. What can I do to make this change that is going to happen no matter what I think or say or do? What can I do to get in there with it and make it better for people?
I have to read this to you. I guess it was about 2 years ago, one of my sisters sent this pillow to me that she had embroidered on, and it says, if nothing ever changed, we wouldn't have butterflies. Isn't that beautiful? That's my
that
Linny.
is wonderful.
That was my Linny.
Wow.
So speaking of that, let me see if I can go to butterflies and read once again about butterflies. Because the butterfly animal wisdom is what I'm looking for here, because it might be what we're looking for, since I was directed to look at that, right? And perhaps I should look into butterfly a little bit more deeply, because it looks like it's fairly barren here. But butterfly, the power of the whirlwind, reincarnation, transformation, transmutation, and magic. Use butterfly wisdom to transform life situations. I'm going to look into butterfly and see what else shows with it.
Well, remember, there's the chaos butterfly too.
Oh?
You know, a butterfly on the other end
theory.
of the world, flaps its wings and creates a tsunami on this end of the world.
Yeah, chaos theory.
Yeah, the whole. So butterfly is massive.
But if the butterfly is massive, then think about you are probably 1,000,000 times the size of a butterfly. So what effect do you then have on the world?
There you go, dear. We do take our interesting paths to get to these discussions, don't we?
We sure do. It's most fun, most interesting. And so I'll look into butterfly a little bit more. Right now we have Adjust and Crystal for.
Oh, what about Adjust Crystal Butterfly?
Yeah, perhaps Adjust Crystal Butterfly. Doesn't that sound interesting?
Yeah.
Because you want to adjust to the discomfort, make it so that you can deal with whatever is going on around you, and you want to be able to have a better understanding of the situation. So there we have Adjust, and then we have Crystal, and then Butterfly is about that transformation.
And the power that comes with it.
Yes, and dealing with change. And so can you imagine a world without butterflies?
It'd be pretty boring.
Yeah, they are so beautiful. And in fact, I could read the Legends of the Butterfly. I've probably done this even with you before. But hey, we're on Butterfly. What can I say? The Legends of the Butterfly. If you have a secret wish, capture a butterfly and whisper your wish to it. Since the butterfly cannot speak, your secret is ever safe in its keeping. Release the butterfly, and it will carry your wish to the Great Spirit, who alone knows the thoughts of butterflies. By setting the butterfly free, you help to restore the balance of nature, and your wish will surely be granted. The butterfly is a symbol of change, joy, and color. A butterfly's flight appears as dancing and a reminder not to take things so seriously. A butterfly has a sense of lightness and joy. The butterfly is a reminder to get up and move. For if you can move, you can dance. And dance brings joy. Isn't that fun?
I'm feeling another tattoo coming on here, dear.
Well, I did a bunch of reading about butterflies. I wonder if butterfly, it must be on let me see if it's on the diffusing words list. Aha, I knew it. I knew I had more information on butterfly. Butterfly is about diffusing and shedding old beliefs that no longer serve us, allowing us to smoothly transition as we journey through life. Butterfly is about transforming from seeing life as a mundane daily drudge to soaring new heights and gaining a wider perspective. I knew I had gone and searched more on the butterfly at some point in time, I remember reading about the monarch.
Mm-hmm.
So the monarch, what is it? I think it's like 4 generations of monarchs
Mm-hmm.
that go from Mexico to Canada and back.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes 4 generations to go from Mexico through the United States up to Canada and then back through the United States to Mexico. So the butterflies that wind up in Mexico are ones that are 3 generations down from the ones that left.
Wow.
And
amazing.
I'm pretty sure it was 4. I may be wrong.
Well, see, now I'm going to have to do a little research on this myself.
But it's really quite fascinating. It was really quite fascinating reading up on butterflies, and I think maybe I'll go back and read up a little bit more on them again so that I can expound more on the butterfly wisdom, because it looks like that's a little bit lacking there.
I love it, dear. See, this is awesome. Look what we've just expanded on so many levels, and expounded, and espoused, and I'll come up with other words later. Cool. So what do you think, darling? We're at 51 minutes, and we started late.
Yeah, we best be going so that my grandkids don't miss their grandma too much. I'm sure they're already up from their nap. And Grandpa's probably wondering where I am. So Anyway, it has been wonderful fun, and we will talk to you next week, Dane.
Sounds good to me. And to all our guests out there, glad you're listening to us, enjoying it, and implement what we're saying. Don't just listen to it. Do some of it. Have some fun. Go play with butterflies. It is summer, There's butterflies out there.
Yes, there are. Thank you very much.
You
Everybody
too,
have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.